Hey everybody, today we are going to be doing a look at a website called Nearpod. Nearpod is a free tool for you as a teacher to use in your classroom through the needs assessment that was conducted by the math teachers. We found that you are looking for a website that can be used with your students, that is interactive, but that also has ways for assessments to be graded for you to save on time, but also helps you to look at student data. So I'm going to give you a little drive around through Nearpod. I'm going to actually click. You'll see there's three options: students, teachers, administrators. As a teacher, you will log in right here, and I'm going to show you how it works. Your students will simply come to Nearpod and enter a code depending on the lesson that you're doing. And this will make more sense in just a few moments. They can also connect this to their Google Classroom. So as I click login, I have an account. You would set up your account using your Google login. And I am going to do just that. So I'm going to log in with my Google account. And as I log in, you will see that it takes me to the home page. Now, the home page for Nearpod lists several different lessons. These are lessons that I have added to my page based on what my students are working on. Let's say you're not sure what you want to do your lesson on. You could simply type in what you're interested in. If you're doing a lesson on fractions, you could type that in the search bar, and it's going to search your lessons to see which ones you've got pinned. I had already saved this lesson on equivalent fractions, so it is listed. Now, let's say I'm interested in adding something to my library. I can explore the Nearpod library, and this is like your jackpot of lessons that have already been created for you. Now, you can create your own lesson. To create your own lesson, you click here, and there are tools that you could use to create your own content and activities. You add slides, almost like a Google slideshow, but you would connect to the internet. They also have some VR field trips you can add, and you can kind of go through and add your own content as well as your own types of activities that you would like. Now, I'm going to show you here today how to utilize the library that Nearpod has already created. So if you click Explore the Nearpod library, it's going to come up with their homepage of everything that they have available. You can also choose from the featured videos based on topic. You can see there are a lot of topics here. Activities, lessons by publisher, and then there are premium collections that you can pay for or that your district can pay for. Now, to filter this down, I can search by state standard. So I can choose Alabama. I can search for math standards. I can even search for third grade. Once I do that, it's going to show me specific platform programs that are added on related to Alabama standards. Now, I can also clear all of those things, go back to the library, and simply click on math and third grade, and it will show me all sorts of options for third grade math. Let's say that I am teaching a lesson on multiplication of nines. It's going to give me anything that mentions 9 multiplication facts. Now, as you see a lesson that you're interested in, you can actually choose it to preview the lesson. And to preview the lesson, it actually allows you to click through and to see what is in the lesson, but you can also see some related content. So these would be lessons that would go along with this lesson you see here. So this just shows you a quick look at the lesson. Now, if I want to add a lesson to my library so that I can access it with my students, again, here's the preview of the lesson. And then I have related content over here on the side. So as I'm looking at the preview of the lesson, and it's showing me the different slides, and I see that, oh, this would be a game where students are choosing the answer. If I want to add that, I can choose this button that says Show in My Lessons. So if I click Show in My Lessons, it's going to put this in my library so that I can access this. Now, because that was already added to my library, it is right here. And when you're ready to do this with your students, you can do student paste. And if you choose student paste, it's going to give them a code. You can also share with them via an email, social media, a link, an embedded code, Google Classroom, through the Remind app or Microsoft Teams. So you have a lot of options. Now, there are 29 days for students to access this. So if you posted this on Google Classroom for your students to complete, let's say you want them to complete this during a center this week in class, they would have the week to complete this, and you can change the expiration or the deadline of when this is due. So if you want it to be due this week, I could say, okay, you have until the 23rd to complete it, and it will have the code for students. I can also skip here to require that student responses have to be entered before they play games or before skipping through problems. Now, another option for this is live participation. So live participation allows me, and I did this earlier in class so I could resume it with my class, or I could start a new session. And it would again give the students a code, and this would be up on the board for students to see. They would type it in and join, and they would see this once they entered in. Now, the code stays at the top of the Nearpod screen, which is really neat because if you have students that come into the class late, or let's say there's a technology glitch and it kicks them out, they could just go back to the Nearpod website and type in this code, even if you're in the middle of a lesson, and it will put them back into the lesson where you're at. So you can choose this particular lesson is a game, so I can choose what I would like for the background to be. I can randomize my answers. I could hit continue. Now, once the players start connecting, so these would be your students, their names will show up here. When you're ready to leave a lesson, you can end the session, and it will log the students out. Another thing that's pretty neat about these lessons is, let's say I want to do this Earth Day lesson right here. There is live participation, starting a session. Students would enter in the code that pops up. Let's say all of my students have entered. You're going to see these blue arrows. Now, these blue arrows show that you are the only one who is able to move this slide. So students would see this on their screen, and they would not see the next slide until you continue the lesson. So this talks a little bit about that this is from the holiday series, gives some information. I like that at the bottom I can actually skip to a slide. So if I knew I was doing this lesson, but I wanted to go ahead and skip to the essential question, I could. You could talk about this with your students and go to the next slide to talk about objectives. And as you get started with your students, there are going to be different things. Now, your students will see this picture. It will be up to you as the teacher to say, what do you think is going on in the image? Have you done an activity similar to this? As the students are seeing this and hearing your question, they will be asked to respond. Once they respond, their results will show on the screen, and you have an option to toggle between hiding their names and showing their names. So it's up to you on whether you want to show your students' names. It also will give you a participation percentage so you know how many of your students still need to answer. During the lesson, you can also open a whiteboard, and you can use the tools here to draw on the whiteboard to show anything. Especially for math, this is great because you can draw an array diagram or whatever you need for your lesson. There are also tools here in case you need to erase or take away something. This kind of draws in a different way, a little bit lighter if you need another color. And then you can go back to erase. You can also close your whiteboard, and it will take it off of the student's screen. Now, as you continue, there are buttons like poll buttons. If you want to share something, if I hit share, it will share this page to my student's screen with their responses. And each lesson is a little bit different. This one features some text that you read through, but it also has little things throughout the lesson like think, pair, shares, polls, a collaborative lesson where students can actually pin sticky notes onto a board. They call it a collaborate board here on Nearpod, and you have the opportunity to approve student comments. Now, as a teacher, I would recommend that, yes, you approve the comments, because when students go to enter in their answer, let's say they're looking up this question asked about what ideas do you have about this celebration? And it's a little girl taking home a worm. Let's say they were to look up worms. There are going to be all sorts of images. Most of them are filtered, but every now and then something could pop up that you would not want them to use. So let's say you tell your students that it has to be a picture of an actual worm, and they were to post this picture of a video game worm, and they type in worms and they post it. Because I'm the teacher, it's going to post, but your students, it will actually go for you to review, and you will get a little notification. It'll be a little orange button that says, oh, you have something to review. And their sticky note would show up here, and you would have the option to approve or unapprove and discard their comment. If you view the teacher lesson that was done, you will see students in real time submitting things. And you'll actually see there were a couple of students who submitted and did not answer seriously. They sent in silly sticky notes, and I was able to decline their sticky notes. But the teacher sticky note will post. Students also have the ability to like and interact with their friends' sticky notes. You can also delete a sticky note at any time. You can also set a time on here for how long they have to answer, as well as you can view in alphabetical order if you would like. It makes it easy for you as the teacher to check to see if everyone has answered the question and to give them feedback or grades if you need to. Another thing that's neat about this is for the reading sections, and I teach math, and this needs assessment was for math, so most of the math teachers wouldn't have large text screens, but if the language arts teachers wanted to use this, or if a math teacher was doing a science lesson, or perhaps like this lesson is Earth Day, you would have a reading feature. And for the reading feature, students on their screen will be able to scroll down and read even though you might be on this first slide. So keep that in mind. They can read ahead. So you may want to tell students, hey, we're going to go one slide at a time, or perhaps you call on students to read. As you click through, it will go to the next section. Again, you can scroll down to see the other picture that is included in this text. And then it takes us to another Collaborate board. Now, if I click no, students would be able to just answer on their own, and I would not have to wait for them to send something for me to approve. There are also different videos that can be played. You can choose whether you want a video to be played on student devices or only on the front board. I would recommend doing the front board if it's something you're doing as a whole group, but obviously if students can complete it at their own time, you would want to choose all devices, and you can choose to apply that for the rest of the lesson or just for this video. So if I choose all devices, whenever I start playing this video, it's going to play with the sound on each student's device. Now, one thing that's neat about Nearpod is it connects with YouTube, and I know a lot of schools have YouTube blocked. However, it will work through Nearpod, but you will only be able to view the videos that are attached in the Nearpod lessons, which are great. They're educational. They've already been reviewed. They don't have ads, and they're all student appropriate based on grade. So again, we have another Collaborate board in this lesson. And then there's a review. So most of the lessons end with some type of quiz or review activity. This particular one had a fill in the blank. As the teacher, you would see the student scores, but you could also see here for the answers, it gives you the text and what the answers students would fill in would be. So the students on their page fill in the blank. They normally, for third grade, have a text with a key that they are choosing words from and deciding where they fit best in the paragraph. I believe there is also a setting that you can do for upper grades where they do not have a key and they just have to type in their words. And then there's normally some type of discussion. Again, we have another video in this lesson, another think, pair, share. And then there is a application for this lesson where students are creating a slogan and a picture to raise awareness of an environmental issue. Once they complete this, it would show up and you could actually share it to other students' screens. So let's say this is a student who shared this beautiful image and I wanted all of the students to see it and to look at theirs. I could press share on this, once it was done, and I would be able to push that image to every student's screen. Again, this has a media reference. Students would see just this, and as they saw this, there would be a question, and when they answered their question, they would be able to respond, where we would see how many have responded, and their answers would show up on the screen. Again, you can hide their names if you don't want them to be seen. And then there's a reflection piece. So students are able to do another collaborative board, thinking about Earth Day and how it affects them. And then it ends the lesson with a thank you to the students, showing them the lesson is now over. There are some additional resources for students or for teachers on most of the lessons provided by Nearpod, especially on the holiday lessons, which is pretty neat. So again, when your lesson is done, you can look at reports and you can see so this is going to email a report from this lesson. So all of the answers students gave, and you could save that to your gradebook. You can also end the session, and it will end it for all students. Another cool feature of Nearpod is for the reports tab over here on the side, any activities that you've done in class. So for example, these are students in my room that were multiplying by 6. I can look and I can actually see their report. I can see how they scored. I can see how they did. It shows me information about them. Now, this specific one, my students did not finish completing. Let me see if I can find one that they did so you can have a good example. Oh, I'm not picking one that has an example. Let's see here. All right, so this one shows that 100% of students answered the questions. It was a poll, and it shows their answer for the polls. They all answered. So if you had something that was graded, it would also show up like this under the summary. So it would show their scores. So if you needed to look back and give them a grade or a score, you could. Those can also be downloaded and printed if needed. So again, there are teacher resources here for Nearpod. To get the most out of your experience, they give you all sorts of opportunities to attend webinars. They have tons of get started videos, especially for how to create your own lesson, how to launch a session with students, post session reports, and then again, more teacher and admin resources. They also have a blog that is pretty neat. It is constantly updated with new activities and changes that you can do for Nearpod to really grow your lessons. And then they also talk about their Facebook page where you can join to see other teachers and their ideas for how to use Nearpod. So again, this is just a quick overview of the interface of the website. This button, Quick Launch, if you click it, it can actually put a timer up on the screen. So if you just want to use this as a timing activity where, let's say, kids have 3 minutes to complete something, you could launch that, start it, and it will count down on the board for students. So that's just a helpful tool that you could use if students are doing an activity in class. Another quick launch option is a collaborate board. So if you open up a collaborate board, put your topic and descriptions, students can come and collaborate together on this board. Another option is a draw it, where you have the whiteboard and students can draw and upload images. And then you can also do an open-ended question where you put a question text, you enter it, and then students will have to respond. If you have any questions about the interface of Nearpod or how to find or start a lesson, I would love for you to shoot me an email and respond. I'm also going to be sending a Google form with some more information about how you enjoyed this video, or if there were any things that were not covered that you would like to know so that I can address those with you. Please stay tuned for part 2. Part 2 is going to be a screencastify of an actual lesson that was done with a class on Nearpod, so you can see how it looks when students are actually participating in class. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy Nearpod.